71 podcast with your hosts, Mario.
Beth?
And Brian.
Intro music. So this week we are going to talk a little bit about not so ideal days in Disney. Talk about some different ways that you can make the best of the worst situations and how we like to handle the elements of Walt Disney World. But first, as always, we're going to dive into the news. This week we've got a lot of Toy Story Land news to talk about, with the reveal of some of the Slinky Dog coaster track, the animatronic for Wheezy, and merchandise. So lots of stuff to talk about. I'm going to link all of these things in the show notes so you'll get to kind of take a look at them as well. But we're getting really close. How are you guys feeling?
Mm-hmm.
Very excited.
I'm excited. Yeah, I think the merchandise and stuff looks really cool. I am a big fan of the Slinky Dog headband, even though I think it's kind of silly. I think it's super cute too.
I really like the alien one.
That one looks cool. I like that one.
Yeah, it is.
I like the fact that the antenna glows. That's cute. The merchandise is neat. I feel like this is just a super sample of what we're going to get because they didn't really release much. It's 3 shirts that look like they're kid shirts, the 2 headbands, and then like a Slinky Dog toy. I'd imagine that we're probably going to get all of the toys in there, like Woody, Buzz, all their figures. We'll probably get them. And hopefully they've got some cool adult t-shirts. But what about the attraction and the animatronics? How do you guys feel about that?
I think the animatronic looks really cool. Like, I'm glad that they didn't go with the I don't know what the term would be, but how the Miss Potato Head eyes are like screens.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I think it's cooler and it looks more real to have the Wheezy animatronic the way they did it.
I'm really glad that they did Wheezy too, because it's cool to see some of the non-major characters kind of get, a little bit more love. And this is a pretty big part of the whole land, so it's cool to see him there.
Right. And I think it moves fluidly. It handles this animatronic in a way that I really like. Like, obviously it's supposed to feel like a toy, so it should feel like a toy. And I think it's pretty well done. I'm really happy about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the coaster looks cute too.
It does. I was a little worried about it because it kind of, I don't know, something feels weird about it, and I have to see it in person. But so far, I'm hyped. I'm ready for it to come.
Yeah, it's one of the few, like, almost completely outdoor coasters that Disney has done. So, I guess the theming of it kind of, I think we mentioned this before, it's going to be kind of themed, I guess, with the entire land instead of the ride having its own unique theming, which I guess kind of goes with it being, a non-enclosed coaster. But it looks like it'll be fun, and it's kind of cool how it weaves its way almost throughout the entire section of Hollywood Studios.
So real quick, I'm going to keep this in, but I lost the tab that I had open for the new video, like the ride through video of the coaster, and I had to Google it. And the first thing that came up was the 3D rendering that the Disney Parks page put up. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, wow, how did this get me excited? Because it literally looks like it was made in like Roller Coaster Tycoon. But outside of that, I'm really excited. I don't know. I didn't think I was going to enjoy that 30-second clip as much as I actually did. So far, the theming around the attraction looks incredible. Like, even though it's outdoors, like, that was a little bit of something that worried me, was how are they going to tackle an outdoor coaster and not make it feel super generic? But I have a little bit more faith after seeing this.
Yeah.
So after that, we had, let's skip ahead and go with the NBA Experience construction photos are surfacing. Spoiler, it's just a bunch of steel beams. But that's proof that we are actually getting something relatively soon. So if you're an NBA fan, there's something to look forward to.
It looks better than when they first started tearing down Disney Quest, for sure.
Mhm.
That is
I can't
definitely true.
believe that they let people see that.
It feels like they tore down Disney Quest so long ago too. Like
Yeah, it really does.
when I added this to our show notes, I was sitting here thinking, like, I feel like I've seen this before. I feel like I've seen an article with NBA construction photos, and then it kind of dawned on me that no, the last time we talked about this was when they tore down Disney Quest. But after that, we have Magic Kingdom's Disney After Hours returns for summer 2018. Select days in June through August. We'll have the essentially paid version of Extra Magic Hours, even though Disney is not marketing it as that. But it's a hard ticketed event, much like Not So Scary and Very Merry Christmas, where you can stay in the park from 7 p.m. till I want to say it's like 1 in the morning, if I remember correctly from last year. But this was
I think it varies by like the day, but that sounds about right.
right. And this was a very big like hot button thing last year, and I think we've all kind of just accepted it now. But I wanted to bring this up because I'm sure that someone out there is going to be very excited for this. But the cost is an average of $119 per night for ages 3 and up for advanced purchase, or $124 for the day of. Pass holders and DVC members can get a discounted rate of $89 plus tax, which isn't awful, especially because Magic Kingdom tickets aren't required, so you get a little bit of a cheaper Magic Kingdom ticket.
Though, from a pass holder's perspective, that $89 is pretty hard to justify.
Yeah. But at least you get to experience like much lower crowds.
That's true, but when you look at this, in my opinion, and I haven't been to one of these, but just from what I've seen, what I've heard other people talk about it, I mean, you're basically paying the cost of going to Not So Scary or the Christmas party, but you're not really getting that bonus theming.
Which that's how those reads entirely to me. Is like you don't get the theming, the shows, any of that stuff. But you know what? It might be good for someone that needs a lower crowd volume. They just want that extra time in the park. And the other nice thing about this is that it's not going to impact Extra Magic Hours for hotel guests, for on-property guests. And at the same time, if you're an off-property guest, you get that Extra Magic Hour, period. So it's kind of I guess, in my eyes, it doesn't really hurt Magic Kingdom that much to have this. So I'm not going to be like, they shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. Kind of going back to the episode that we did about the, financial situation of Disney, I am not opposed to things that don't just like detract from someone else's experience. So I'm okay with them doing this.
Right. And I think for me, the biggest thing that I'm looking at this as is it gives the people that don't have the option to stay on property, like if they need to stay cheaper and they have to stay off property or whatever their situation may be, it gives them the chance to experience the Extra Magic Hours. And I personally really enjoy them. So I think it's a nice trade-off.
For sure.
So all that said, are we ready to dive in this week?
Yep.
Cool. Yep. So this week, our topic came from one of our listeners, listener Victoria, sent us an email and asked if we could cover do an episode on certain types of weather, rain, extreme heat, just to name a few, because there are some articles out there that cover how to handle this, but it's always nice to kind of talk about it and get someone else's perspective. So let's kind of just approach this as assuming you're in the park and you're just going about your day and all of a sudden bad weather happens, or it's forecasted for a miserable day, which can happen. Let's just go with our tips and talk about some ways to handle that bad weather.
Yeah. And Beth, I think what you have in the show notes here, the first thing is basically the ultimate thing to tell anybody about this before you go to the Disney parks?
Yeah, so preparation is going to literally day to day. So my advice would be to first of all check the weather when you're packing for your trip so that you know what to pack. You know, whether it's going to be super rainy or super hot. And sometimes it does get actually unusually cold, even though it's Florida. So it's always good to know that, just to have like a light sweater or something. And also just do a little quick check of the weather before you leave the hotel room in the morning so that you know like if anything's changed and what you need to put in your bag for the parks and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And, you know, we are talking about Florida. The weather in Florida is super unpredictable.
Mm-hmm. Especially during the summer.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
So you should always prepare for the worst. Do you want to move on to your, I guess that was Brian's next point? I don't know.
Yeah.
You guys didn't, no one put a name next to it.
I didn't color code mine this week.
No way. I'm
But
going to
yeah.
assume the white is all you.
Yeah. So one easy thing is to just make sure you and everybody in your party has a poncho before you leave. They don't take up hardly any space in your bag, and you probably want to have them somewhere that they're pretty easy to get to. But definitely buy them before you go into the parks. You can go to Walmart or Walgreens, whatever
Dollar
store.
Tree.
Yeah, almost
Exactly.
everybody will have them, and they'll cost about $1. If you buy them at Disney, they're usually around 15. And now the ones in the parks are usually the nice kind of thicker material that are meant to be used pretty much indefinitely, whereas the dollar store ones are kind of the one and done, but still you're probably not going to use the poncho 15 times while you're at Disney, so it'll be cheaper to just buy a pack of the semi-disposable ones.
Plus, you can get reusable ones for, you know, $7 or $8, like pretty nice ones.
I mean,
Well-
really, even the cheap ones are pretty much reusable as long as you don't accidentally tear a hole in them or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing. Like the dollar store ones, those you can reuse them. I've done it before on trips, and even if you throw one or two in just in case it rips or whatever, like $1 is better than the $20 for a poncho that you're gonna buy in Disney.
Mhm.
Yeah, especially if you're buying ponchos for your whole family.
Oh
That's
gosh.
a big expense that you do not need to pay.
But the big downside is they do not have Mickey on them, so
That's true.
gotta take that into consideration.
But on a similar note, I would also say to throw a pair of flip-flops in your bag as well, because I personally have gotten caught in the rain before and had a really nice poncho that I bought before I went to the park. And, you know, I felt like I was super prepared and was wearing canvas shoes and literally had to throw them away when I got back to the hotel because they got so soaking wet and disgusting. So,
Yeah. And I don't know about you, but like the rest of me could be wet, but if I'm walking around in wet tennis shoes, that's game over for me. The day is
Yeah.
ruined.
that's the worst.
Yeah. I wholeheartedly agree with that. I mean, we've talked before about the importance of footwear, but in this situation, like flip-flops, sandals, that's the way to go.
Yeah, for sure. Everybody's different, but I would much rather be wearing a semi-uncomfortable pair of flip-flops than a soaking wet pair of, Nikes or something.
Right.
But also, just one last little thing about being rain appropriate is to try and get a backpack that's waterproof or at least water resistant, because especially if you're going to be carrying around souvenirs or important documents for your family, like if you're, I don't know, especially if you're international or whatever, you don't want all of that stuff to get destroyed when it rains, especially if you don't have a poncho, which if you do have a poncho, it's nice. You can just kind of, slide it over your backpack, but it's always kind of good to have waterproof or water resistant backpack and keep all your belongings nice and dry.
Mm-hmm. And one thing that I usually have on me is a waterproof case for my phone. But if you don't have that, a really simple thing to do is just put a couple of plastic baggies in your bag before you go. If you've got multiple electronic devices, you can just throw whatever you need in there. But another point about the backpack and getting one that's waterproof, as someone that hikes, I know one of the things that a lot of people do if they don't have a bag that is waterproof is just take a trash bag, stuff it down in your bag, and then basically use it inside your bag to keep anything you need waterproof. So if you have a lot of stuff that you need to make sure it stays dry, that's also a pretty easy solution.
Yeah, for sure. And just to add to the plastic baggie thing, because I do the same. I think that's a great idea. Is that it's actually kind of cool if like you can still use your phone through the bag.
Yeah.
So even if it's raining, you can still be on your phone.
Yeah, definitely. And even if it doesn't forecast for extreme weather and you're thinking it's going to be super sunny out, plastic bags are great for things like, Cali River Rapids, where the dry storage is non-existent anymore. And like, I personally would recommend that to everyone going. Bring some kind of waterproofing situation.
Definitely.
Yep.
But also after that, I see that someone else put use short showers as a time to grab a bite to eat or check out some of the shops. Fantastic recommendation. Also, I think now would probably be a good time to talk about where good places to hide during the rain are. Obviously, shops, getting a quick sit down somewhere is always good. Honestly, now is probably a good chance to try to jump in some rides if they're not too long, but that's tricky too because everyone else is going to be doing that. Any comments on places to go specifically?
Well, I would just say that if your timing is opportune, go to like some of the big stores like Mouse Gears and stuff, because you can look around for a while in there and take up a good chunk of time waiting for the rain to stop. But also there are, several little spots around the parks that are just kind of nice to sit and relax that are covered. So specifically in Epcot, the Kid Cot stations are pretty cool because, there's a bunch of seating. You can just sit and take a break. If you want to color a Duffy Bear or Perry the Platypus little thing, you can. And you can also talk to the cast member that's there, which is always a really fun part of Epcot, is just talking to international people.
Yeah, I think that's a really good spot to stop. I honestly have never thought to stop in World Showcase. I would also say, kind of a little bit off of that, in extreme weather conditions, it might not be a bad idea to resort hop. Like,
That's a good one too. Yeah.
I mean, if you're in Magic Kingdom, catch the monorail and go to do the monorail loop. It's cool to kind of see different places, and there's not going to be as much activity to do as there would be in the parks, but you're going to be in a dry spot, and mostly everything that you're going to want to look at is going to be indoors.
Right.
Plus, the monorail stations from the monorail itself to the hotel are covered, so...
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, I'm skipping over. I'm reading through these things and looking at what we've covered already. Okay, so it looks like the next thing that we had on here was breaking down the attractions in each park by what would be good to do during the bad weather. Do we want to go into that?
Sure.
Okay, cool. So let's take Magic Kingdom, since that's the first one. Is there anything that pops into your mind specifically when you think of Magic Kingdom in some not so good weather?
I think the biggest one is probably Space Mountain. It's already usually fairly crowded, but when it starts raining, you'll see even more people running to it because, I mean, the entire ride from the beginning of the queue till you get off is in the rain. And then I don't know if people do it specifically because of that, but there's also, you know, an indoor gift shop once you get out that is fully enclosed. So, you know, that gives you a good bit of time to spend completely dry.
Yeah, that's a good one. I would say any attraction that typically has a longer wait time might be a good thing to do either way, because not a lot of them are out in the rain.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, depending on how severe the weather is, you might even want to do something like jump on Splash Mountain if it's just raining outside. You're going to get wet anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that all kind of is situational.
My go-to is always Carousel of Progress because it's so long that,
That's a really good one.
That's a good
you
one.
know, and air conditioned and nice.
I'm going to steal that from you. That also works in not in a rainy situation because, you know, extreme heat is also a bad weather condition as well.
Mhm.
And Carousel of Progress is air conditioned, so there you go. Win-win.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think I'm going to have to agree with Brian. I would probably have jumped on Space Mountain before I heard your Carousel of Progress idea. Now I'm going to steal that from you.
I would also say at Magic Kingdom, since we were talking earlier about this being a good time to grab a bite to eat, to go to Cosmic Rays, because then you also get to sit and watch Sunny Eclipse perform. So that's kind of fun.
And that's the thing that you kind of have to consider is like with a lot of these severe weather situations, specifically thinking rain in mind, because that's going to be the one that you're going to have to wait out. You're going to want to be somewhere that you know you can be for a while. Like you don't want to jump on a Small World where the line is typically at most 10 to 20 minutes and, you know, go in, ride the ride, and then leave. That doesn't really help you.
Right.
But doing something that you know is going to have that long period of time works out great. So after that, do we want to go to Epcot, or do you guys have anything else you want to talk about with Magic Kingdom?
Let's go to Epcot.
Yeah.
Epcot, I think, is pretty easy. There's a lot of places to walk around that are covered. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you could go through Japan, do the Mitsukoshi store. I also like Morocco because there's some cool places to duck into and look at some of the architectural stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I think World Showcase is probably a really good spot to kind of wait out the storm. You can kind of find pretty much anything from stores to eating. So
It's kind of a double-edged sword, though, because it has probably the most activities that you could do out of the rain. But between them is the longest spread. So you
Yeah.
gotta hope that you're in a good showcase country when it starts raining, that you can do a lot of stuff.
yeah,
Right. And each of the showcases has like a little gallery type of area, which are kind of fun for times like this. You know, not only rain, but just if you're trying to get away from the crowd or trying to get out of the heat, because a lot of people I think don't know that these exist, but they're, except for the one in Japan, because you know, you walk by it when you're walking out of the store, but the rest of them are kind of tucked off, and you, if you're not paying attention, you might not notice them, but they have like different, I guess, like cultural presentations type of things, and that's pretty cool to, you know, learn a little bit about the culture while you're waiting out the bad conditions.
yeah, that's a good one.
Plus the seas is great for spending time indoors.
You
I
could
know that's not
also
World Showcase, but
right. Well, the nice thing about that is you could also do the land too, because
Mhm.
either of those pavilions have enough attraction in them that, I mean, between waiting in line for soaring and then or for soaring and the whole time that you'll be on Living with the Land, that's going to be plenty of time to go through and avoid the storm.
And if it's a especially bad day and you don't mind spending a little bit extra money, I'm going to plug the Behind the Seeds tour on here too.
That tour is awesome.
So the one thing that I do want to say that we've kind of totally avoided that I, for some reason, have just thought of now is that sometimes you do typically, or well, not typically, sometimes you get lucky and the park will empty out. Don't plan for that, because that is a suggestion that I have seen all over the internet, is that when it rains, the park clears out. And I've had times where it's been lucky and I've gotten like almost empty park after a rainstorm. But if it is, you are in for probably like some of the best time that you will have, because there is not going to be anyone there.
I think it depends a lot on the park you're in and the time of the day. If it's late night at Hollywood Studios, people are probably going to just call it a wraps. If it's midday at Magic Kingdom, just buckle up.
Buckle down.
It's not going to get any better. It's probably going to get worse. So keep that in mind.
It's very hit or miss.
We one time went and got stuck in a rainstorm after walking through all of World Showcase. We made it all the way to Canada, and we like walked into that little store that was there, and as we were walking in, it just like opened up and like downpoured, and it was there for maybe like 10 minutes at most, because we walked through the store, got our ponchos out, and started walking out of World Showcase to go into Future World to just hit some attractions while we waited. And in the time that we walked from Canada to like the end of, or the start of Future World, it was done, but there was no one there. So like sometimes you get lucky and it's a great thing, but don't ever plan for that, because it's all luck.
But you can also, make a good time out of it if you do get stuck, even if it's a big crowd. Somebody put in the show notes to play in the rain, which I think is super fun, especially if you've had a few drinks and your inhibitions are a little bit lower. It's fun to just kind of splash around in the puddles or walk around in areas that are getting rained on, because even if the crowd itself isn't leaving, they're not going to just stand in the rain. They're going to look for those covered areas to hide out, and you can take advantage of that time, especially if you're prepared and have an umbrella or a poncho.
And I think one area that would be really, really cool to kind of be stuck in when it's raining, just so you could do it, would be Tom Sawyer Island.
That would be interesting.
It would kind of just add to the theming even more.
Yeah, and that'd be cool with the caves and stuff.
That would actually be the last place that I would think to be stuck in a rainstorm. I wonder, like, if they have any kind of like special protocol for when it rains on Tom Sawyer Island, like heavy rain. I mean,
I don't know, because the ferries don't run back and forth if it's raining very hard, do they?
That's what I'm wondering, because I don't remember ever seeing them run in the rain, but I also don't really like make it a point to go to Tom Sawyer Island that much.
Yeah, I'm wondering how that is, because I don't know if they could really like keep people stranded over there. I mean, if it ended up raining for like 2 hours and you're stuck over there and you have like dinner reservations or something, I could see people getting pretty upset that those got messed up.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, if anyone has been stuck on Tom Sawyer Island in extreme rain, let us know. I'm waiting for that one person that was stuck there during like Hurricane Matthew or something. Got locked in Magic Kingdom.
I had to sleep overnight on Tom Sawyer Island.
Sounds like a horror movie. But next up, we had Hollywood Studios on here. And I honestly think that pretty much any attraction in Hollywood Studios is either going to be slammed if it's early morning and people are still just kind of like, oh, it'll pass.
You mean all three attractions?
That's my point. Because like there's nothing there now. And I feel like even when Toy Story Land opens, it's going to see that same thing, because there's not a lot of cover in Toy Story Land from what we've seen so far. I think that maybe when Star Wars opens, like Galaxy's Edge opens, I think maybe we'll see a little bit more places to hide. But for now, studios, I think between that and Animal Kingdom, it's hard to say anything is easy to hide out in.
Well, as a counterpoint, though, how much does it raining affect Hollywood studios? Because almost everything there is completely enclosed already.
That's fair.
I guess the only thing I can really think of is the queue for Tower of Terror.
Mm.
And even then, the outside portion never is really filled up that far.
True.
I mean, the most I've seen it is it'll wrap around the outside of the building and through that like first little section of garden, and that's it.
Mm.
Yeah, I would say that other than, if you're not trying to be stuck in one particular place, other than World Showcase, that Hollywood Studios would be a pretty terrible one to get stuck in.
I mean, and to Brian's point, the only thing that I can think of that it would affect would really be Indiana Jones. And previously, it would affect the pre-show and probably all of Backlot Tour and Lights Motor Action, but none of them are there anymore.
I do want to take this opportunity to bring up the point that sometimes if the weather is bad enough, they will cancel the nighttime shows, specifically Phantasmic. So that's another reason to plan for the weather, because if there's a show that you really, really, really want to see, you probably want to go on a day that it looks like it's going to be good weather.
Yeah.
Rather than chance it.
That's very true. Definitely plan for it on the best day of your trip. And
parades too.
Yeah, that's also a very good point.
Or the parade.
Yeah. Well, and it probably also affects things like the March of the First Order and Hollywood Studios. Anything outside, like you can't really expect them to do anything in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
So after that, we had Animal Kingdom, which I kind of feel like this is one that could be good or could be bad, depending on where you are.
I've gotten rained on a lot at Animal Kingdom, so it's become like kind of a fond thing for me, just because there's a lot of stuff that you can do that's different when it's raining. Like, for example, Kilimanjaro safaris, the animals seem to really like the rain. I guess, especially when it's hot outside, it's going to be nice little refreshing cool off type of thing. So a lot of times when I've been on it's raining, it seems like they're more active and visible. And I think that makes for a really cool and unique experience.
Yeah, and also to that point, Animal Kingdom is typically like the hottest park. I have no idea what it is, but I always feel like super fatigued leaving Animal Kingdom because of the heat.
Really?
Yeah. I have no idea.
I would say that Epcot is the hottest part because there's less shade, but I think Animal Kingdom's pretty nice and has a bunch of foliage, so
I mean, there's shade, but I always feel like it's super humid. Like,
yeah, that's true.
It's just something about that park just feels super humid and hot to me. So like having that nice cool rain is probably actually ideal in a way.
But, unless it stays hot, then it's the worst.
Yeah, that's very true. The funny thing about Animal Kingdom, like I'm thinking about attractions that I would go on and thinking about covered attractions. And this is probably the only time that I'm ever going to say this, but you may actually want to go on It's Tough to Be a Bug just to get out of the rain.
Yeah, that is a good one.
And also very off the beaten path thing that you may want to consider is Rafiki's Planet Watch, because they do not stop the train when it's raining. I've been on it several times when it's raining. And that whole area, other than the petting zoo, is enclosed. And, if you've listened to any other episode, you probably heard me nerd out about conservation and nature and stuff because I'm a little bit of a tree hugger. But I think that one of the best things about Rafiki's Planet Watch is talking to the cast members, because they're so knowledgeable and you can learn so much, just about the different animals that are in there or different procedures that they do different research methods, and I think that that's really fun and interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I would recommend Rafiki's Planet Watch, even if it's not raining.
Same.
But I mean, off of that, you also had your Kilimanjaro. Oh, well, no, you already said that. I don't know why I'm bringing that up again. I'm gonna cut that out.
I
Yeah.
also, not to give my secret away, but I always find a really nice spot to be the patio of Nomad Lounge when it's raining, because it's covered, but you're still outside and there's a bunch of seating, and it's just kind of relaxing and scenic, and you can just kind of sit and sip on your drink and, you know, sit by the river and watch the rain. It's just kind of serene in a very, very busy park.
And I think that's kind of like the general gist of what we've been having to say is just don't get overwhelmed in the fact that you're, you know, losing a half hour, whatever, to the rain or bad weather, but take it in strides. Enjoy the peace and the quiet, and look at some of the other things that are probably not going to be as crowded, I guess, in the rain.
Mm-hmm.
But off of that, we've been talking a lot about rain. Let's talk about heat. I know we don't have that on here at all, but I feel like that's one that we kind of come to expect, especially because, you know, we're in Florida and it's typically hot there, but some people don't plan for the heat.
Mm-hmm.
My suggestion, kind of follow most of these tips that we've had for the rain. Duck in places where it's cool, places where it's air conditioned, and, you know, you can get out of the sun. But also, don't forget your sunblock.
Mm-hmm.
Please do not forget your sunblock. And maybe if it's too hot, just go back to your room, relax for a little bit.
Mm-hmm. I think the big difference here, though, is the rain's going to pass, the heat's not. So a bigger
Right.
thing than finding ways to get out of it is finding ways to kind of better adequately prepare yourself for it, which, you know, staying hydrated is a huge, huge thing. And, you know, it's not just the heat, it's the humidity. And I know it's a very cliche thing to say, but it's very, very true.
Mm-hmm. I would also say to, even if you're going to be out and about in the sun and, you know, the weather's really nice, it's not raining, but it's still super hot, still make a point to take some breaks out of the sun, because I don't know if you guys have ever experienced this. I've never personally experienced it, but I've known people that have. Have you heard of the Disney rash?
Yes.
So basically, for anybody who's listening and may not know about it, it's basically the product of walking on hot pavement, and your legs will turn like gross red, like welty bumps kind of things. And from what I understand, it's painful as well, but it's super unsightly, which would be my main concern.
I've never actually experienced that, but I've heard it, and I've heard that it's horrible, which, yikes.
Yeah. And also, you know, depending on where you live, this may not be a possibility, but you could also take a little bit of time before your trip and just go on a quick walk every day, just to kind of prepare yourself for that. Because I feel like every time that I've been more active before a trip, I have a significantly better time, because I'm like more accommodated to the heat, or, you know, I don't get as tired, my muscles don't get as achy, etc.
And if you really want to prepare yourself and you have a gym membership that has a sauna, sit in there for a little bit too, because that will be even more accurate.
Yes,
Perfect.
that's extremely accurate. Oh, and I'm a very big proponent of hats for the
Yes.
sun. Hats
That,
are great.
And sunscreen as well. And along the same lines as ponchos, buy them before you're in the park. It will save you a ton of money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, make sure you have like all of that, your hats, your sunscreen, your everything. It's nice to get the stuff that has the Disney logo on it, but for triple the price, buy it at home.
Mm-hmm. especially for something like sunscreen. I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
Another suggestion that I have is if you are someone that's pretty susceptible to heat or you're just not very used to it, the little Frog Tog towels or whatever other brand of cooling towels you want are very nice to have. I usually take one parks with me, and I would say, fairly used to the heat, but even that doesn't make it, where I don't want to enjoy a nice cool towel. So I would recommend picking up one of those.
Yeah, that's a good tip. And also, on a similar note, they make, everybody's heard of like the Yeti cups, and they have like tons of different off-brand ones. They make water bottles as well, and those are absolutely amazing because if you put some ice and water in it, it's literally going to stay cold all day long, even if it's super hot outside. So that's always a really nice thing to have, is a nice cold bottle of water everywhere you go.
And if you don't happen to have one, I know this has been said by us 1,000 times, and it's becoming a lot more popular and more well known, and I'm glad, but I'm still going to say it again. Any place that serves soft drinks at Disney World will give you free ice water. Take advantage of it.
I know that this is another thing that we've said before, and it's going to be kind of a little bit niche, but Brian, you recommended Camel bags, and I'm surprised you didn't bring that up again, because that is a great suggestion.
I do enjoy mine. I generally only use it during the summer to actually put water in. I take it with me every time I'm in the park. I know it is kind of a niche thing, and it's not, everybody doesn't have one, and they do come with, some added frustrations, mainly the weight. But if you have one, if you're used to carrying one around, or if you just don't really mind the weight, I would definitely recommend one, especially during the hot months, because having it always on hand, having it when you're in the queues, and even when you're on the attractions, because a lot of places are going to make you throw a drink out before you get on. It's nice to have it at all times.
I totally agree with that. When you said that, I was like, oh man, I know I have one. I should probably start bringing it. But let's move on to the next category. If I think we're pretty much all good on that, because I think this is a more panicked situation for some people, especially those first time park goers. But ride closures, everyone loves to plan. And when you see that attraction that you really wanted to go on is down for refurbishment or closed for issues, it's never a good sign. So this is definitely something that whoever put this in here, I totally think this goes with our disasters. Yeah, whoever wants to take over can go.
Yeah. So back to a thing that we've said a lot is try to be flexible in your planning. Don't over plan everything. I know some people get really into that, and it is fun, and a lot of people really enjoy that aspect of the vacation, just going and planning everything out. But I can almost guarantee you, if you are planning everything down to the minute, if you plan everything down to the half hour, what you're trying to do at the parks, it's not going to work out that way. I can almost guarantee you. So try to just go in. My suggestion is to go in with an idea of the things that you want to do and not necessarily when they need to be done. The exceptions for that, I would say, are, if there's an attraction or a show, especially that only occurs at a certain time, obviously you have to plan that. And if you want to rope drop a certain attraction, you obviously need to make sure that's the first one you do. But past that, I always recommend people just be willing to kind of go with the flow of what's going on in the parks.
Yeah, for sure. And also, they do post refurbishment schedules online, so check those out before you start planning, so that you can kind of plan more accurately.
Yeah. But I think that pretty much covers what I was gonna say. anything else you guys want to talk about on that subject, or did we just blow through this week's show?
Well, one more just quick little note I have is I see a lot of people freaking out because they have a fast pass for a ride and their ride gets temporarily closed either for a small maintenance thing or because it's raining or something, and they freak out. And I've seen people getting very, very angry with the cast members about not being able to get on a ride because they have a fast pass for it. They planned for this and now they can't get on it. Chill out. Your fast pass is going to be good for anything else in that tier. If you're at a tiered park, you go get on. And honestly, a lot of times that this has happened to me, I've been able to get on a better ride because the ride I had a fast pass for was shut down. So unless it's something you really, really want to be on, take it as an opportunity to maybe do something even better.
Yeah, I love when this happens. This is like the holy grail of fast passes, especially because I've actually had times where, like Frozen Ever After, for example, I had a fast pass for it once, and it was having technical issues and got closed for the day. And so not only did they give me a fast pass that I could use for the next, like, I don't know, day or couple of days that I could get on Frozen Ever After when it came back up, but they also give you like a flexible one that you can just kind of do whatever you want with. You can just like walk up to the ride and say, here's my fast pass, and it'll work. Mm-hmm. So yeah, those I think are awesome. So definitely does not have to be a bad thing.
Yeah, I think ride closures are probably the easiest thing to deal with if you're flexible. Like, there's so many things that while they go down, like you get so many other options to go on them. It's just so easy to deal with. Mm-hmm. I think I've talked about it before where, you know, even if you don't have a fast pass, like this is how I got lucky with Frozen Ever After when it first opened. It went down so much that the one time we were there, we were by it, it went down. We waited 5 minutes for the ride to come back up. If it didn't come back up, we were planning to leave. We were just going to sit, grab a snack in Norway, and then, you know, go home. But we waited the 5 minutes. It opened back up. The cast members let everyone on. We waited 20 minutes in line. So sometimes you get lucky in situations like that where the ride goes down and then it gives you a shorter wait time. Not always, but worth a shot.
And, you know, just to hammer that nail in even further, just let magic happen at Disney, yes, because those are some of the best experiences I've ever had, is the stuff that I was completely not expecting to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So exactly. Just, you know, like Brian was saying, be flexible in your planning and, you know, don't expect anything, but be open to the possibility.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, with these situations like this, with stuff that happens, I can't think of a time really where something kind of went wrong that Disney didn't like more than make up for in correcting. So
yeah, for sure.
99% of the time they are going to do everything they can to make their guests happy. So just be patient, be nice and cordial with the cast members, and I can almost guarantee you that your situation will get at the very least resolved, and more than likely probably end up giving you a better experience than you were going to originally have.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, please do not abuse this system by any means, but if you truly have a terrible experience that is something out of your control, cast members have the ability to give you what's called a no strings attached. And it's basically like a little paper golden ticket that they can give you a fast pass for an attraction, or if, you know, I don't know, the rain completely destroys your shoes, they could give you a no strings for a new pair of shoes in one of the stores. So, like I said, please don't abuse it, but it's nice that the option is there if you truly need it. but also don't expect anything. Just go into it hoping for the best.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the point for everything. Like, there's a lot of talk about, magic that goes on in Disney, be it here, be it on the internet, whatever. And it's so easy to ruin your trip by expecting that to happen. And it doesn't always happen. That's the nice thing about Disney, is they have the flexibility to do some of those magical things.
Mm-hmm. And just to reiterate what Brian said, you catch more flies with honey than vinegar. Cast members are going to be much more willing to go out of their way to make it right if you're nice to them. And that, I'll step off of my soapbox after this, but that goes for any industry that has a customer service element to it.
Mm-hmm.
So just take that and chew on it.
Nice. So is there anything you guys want to talk about this week before we tie this up? Anything you guys want to mention? This is we blew through this topic.
Maybe I do have one more thing that I just want to touch on briefly, is since we're talking about, making the best of a bad situation, is that there are going to be crowds at Disney regardless of what time of year you go. And sometimes those crowds are going to seem completely unbearable. But again, going back to just being polite, you're not going to ruin someone else's trip. If you're super rude, you're going to probably ruin your own too. So just courtesy when there's big crowds, but also always.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
That is a very good point.
But now I'll step off my soapbox.
But other than that, is there anything you guys want to talk about this week? Anything you want to run over? Any final words of wisdom on making the best of the worst in Disney World?
I don't think I have anything necessarily to add to that topic, but if you guys have any suggestions, as always, hit us up on social media or shoot us an email, because we love to hear things that we haven't heard before.
Yes. And we'll be sure to mention all of the things that you bring up. If you send us stuff, comment on this week's episode of the show and let us know what you think, we'll be happy to read it next week and let you know how we feel about it.
For sure.
Cool. And I got nothing else to say. So I'm good if you guys are good.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
Easy week.
Short one, yeah.
I couldn't think of many other extreme situations that would happen at Disney.
I feel like rain